My name is Ivy and I'm here with Preuss News. Today we will be exploring the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic had on students' math and reading test scores. One of the longest interruptions to the U.S. school system after many years was the lockdown caused by COVID-19. The interruption was detrimental to the education of students, as evidenced by the decline in the test scores in reading, writing, and math among students in the U.S. Recovery has been slow, however, there have been improvements in math, however, not as much as in the reading and writing. Now, here are one of the interviewees from an English teacher here at the Preuss School. Hi, I'm Ivy from PNN News, and I'm here with
Mrs. Majors.
And today we will be discussing about standardized testing.
Standardized tests, all tests really, are a snapshot. They capture how a student did on a particular day, on a particular time. And a lot of things can affect test scores. This is like a controversial topic to talk about within education. So I want to say that first. So a lot of things can affect a student's test scores. And as far as improving test scores, I really feel like when it comes to standardized tests in particular, the most effective way to improve test scores is to practice different parts of the test, to practice and memorize specific testing strategies. Because if there's one thing that students need to know about standardized tests is that they're testing much more than just the content. They're testing your test-taking skills as well. They're testing things that you don't even really understand are part of the test. So standardized tests aren't always a great reflection of a student's comprehension of content. It may be a combination of a student's understanding and knowledge of how to take tests and the content and how the student is doing in general on that day at that time.
Thank you. And why do you think the COVID-19 pandemic had such a big impact on standardized testing for students?
Because I think COVID affected all of education in levels that we still don't fully understand. Students missed out on anywhere from 8 months to over a year's worth of growth and socialization and content and relationship building and a lot of peripheral things that are part of a student's education. And that rebuilding process and that reacclimation is taking a long time. And I think, some students got used to being at home. I think, when things are easier or more comfortable, there's resistance to going back to the way things used to be. And specifically here at Preuss, when we came back, it was not the same as when we left. There were a lot of changes that we had to adapt to in a short amount of time. So I think that definitely could have affected things here.
So for our last question, what methods do you think teachers can use to motivate students to try on standardized testing?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Personally, I believe that students, particularly students here at the Preuss School, should really rely on their internal motivation to do well on the standardized tests. And the ones that come to mind are your AP exams. Students at Preuss have access to a lot of great AP classes and the opportunity to take those AP tests. And we know from educational research that regardless of how a student does on the test, all indications are that students who not only take the AP class but then go on and take the test do better in college, which is the whole goal of this school. So I think teachers can incentivize doing well on a test and really trying on the test. I know that we have a policy here at Preuss of if a student gets a certain score on the test, we are justified in going back and changing that student's score in the class to a C, a B, or an A, depending on what their corresponding AP score was. I think that is highly motivating for students. But really it should come from within the student, because no teacher can take that test for the student. And all of the students here at Preuss have the goal of going to college and being able to have the future that they want to have, being able to have options in life. And that starts with taking advantage of the opportunities that we give you at this school.
Thank you again, Ms. Majors, for taking your time to do this interview.
Of course, anytime.
Hi, I'm Ivy from Preuss News, and this is
Mr. Arias from Preuss.
So, To begin, what can be implemented to help improve students' test scores?
I would say a lot of practice and the use of the actual practice tests from websites like CASP, and then I would say just questions that align with those skills. I would say, and then on top of it, just having a consistent curriculum, specifically teaching classes that go over those skills and that also use the practice questions that come from the CASP website.
And then, why did COVID-19 have such a huge impact on students' ability to produce high test scores?
I would say just because you guys have to be here in the classroom with the teachers, and I feel like that is an important connection that we have with you guys, teachers and students. So that, and also in addition to it, in my experience, I wasn't able to teach at least 50% of my topics that I usually teach in my curriculum during COVID. So you can see that as a consequence, that's going to bring a deficit for you guys. So I talked to my other colleagues and they had the same experiences. So they basically had to cut down what they used to teach just because the scheduling and how that happened really prevented us from actually finishing those topics. So I will say that's the effect, and I see it. We're still experiencing that in the classroom. I see people still trying to catch up, and I would say it's going to take a few more years just so we can alleviate that situation. But it's mainly because we want you guys to be here so we can be efficiently teaching and learning, so we can solve the problem. We're working on it now.
And what other factors do you think could have contributed to lower test scores?
I feel like besides what I just mentioned, I will say what happens within the family too. So we only see what you guys, excuse me, and what you bring into the classroom. We don't really know exactly sometimes what happens at home. So I feel like that, relationships with the family, the parents, siblings, they could definitely affect the performance of students at school, within the school. So I will say that is definitely a variable that we have to consider if we think about it. So I would say that.
And lastly, how can teachers motivate their students to do better during tests and improve their overall academic performance?
I would say it's going to sound cliche, but I would say making the class fun. I know that specifically math, people don't see it as fun sometimes, but I feel like for me it's a challenge. Just trying to make my class fun, engaging, and just giving the opportunity for collaboration if possible. That's exactly how we can engage people in the class. So I try my best for my students to work in groups, sometimes on projects, and then so they can discuss the stuff that we teach in class. So I would say when they have a happy teacher in the classroom, the learning will actually happen. So I try my best just to be happy and enjoy my time with them so they can see that reflection in me, that they can try their best and that they will be in a safe space with me so they can ask questions and improve day by day.
And that'll be it. Thank you, Mr. Arias, again for taking our interview.
So from what we've heard from our teachers today, some solutions to our problem could be making classes more engaging and more fun with activities to help strengthen the relationship with the teacher and the student. However, it is also up to the student to have their own motivation to do well with testing and to have their own time with study. This is Ivy from Chorus News. Thank you for listening.